Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are across this great country of ours, and welcome to the NALA Paralegal panel. So you want to be a paralegal. Paralegal Pathways panel discussion. Welcome. I'm so excited. We have a great group of panelists here today. We are going to give you some information about NALA resources, and this is your chance as a paralegal to ask legal professionals like specialists and seasoned paralegals and paralegals who know a lot about the paralegal profession, the do's, the don'ts, things you should do, things to avoid, things we wish we'd have known when we were starting out in our careers. So I'm really happy to have you here. And our goal is is for you to be able to ask questions about specific areas of law and gain information about what resources you'd like to see from NALA. We're just kind of out here listening. This is your chance to ask a question. If you have questions, pop it into that questions panel that you see on the, I think should be on the right-hand side of your screen or the left-hand side. I'm a little dyslexic sometimes, so search for that screen, but feel free to ask questions as we go along. We're going to introduce our panelists and we'll get started with some questions, but I'm super excited to have you all here. And I suppose I should introduce myself. I just sometimes forget. I am Melissa Hamilton. I am the president of NALA, the Paralegal Association, and I'm in my second term as NALA president. I live in Bismarck, North Dakota, and I work for the North Dakota Office of Attorney General in the Civil Litigation, Natural Resources, and Indian Affairs Division. I do a lot of litigation, lots and lots of litigation, mostly motion summary, few trials, learning that stuff. But it's interesting, and I like my job. And actually, I am coming to you from Rugby, North Dakota, which is the geographical center of North America, because I am here for a family get-together. My godchild's having a baby. We're having a baby shower. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kayla, and she's going to take it from here. Kayla is going to serve as our moderator for this discussion. So Kayla, take it over.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you for joining us from a shower. That's wild. I'm Kayla Glaros, ACP. I'm in the Tampa, Florida area, and I'm on NALA's Professional Development Committee. I'm going to go ahead and introduce, obviously I'll be your moderator today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists today. You guys have a great panel to answer and ask lots of questions for. So first on our panel is B. Levine. B is a certified paralegal, formerly with Buchanan Ingersoll Remy firm in Tampa, Florida, and has specialized in immigration law for over 30 years. She received her CP designation in 1988 from NALA and her Florida Registered Paralegal designation in 2008 from the Florida Bar. B's the Paralegal Association of Florida's immediate past president. On a chapter level for PAP, she was the past president of Hillsborough chapter and is currently on the board for the Polk County chapter. The community level, B has served as an advisory council member for the Paralegal Studies program of Kaiser University since 2013 and has dedicated numerous pro bono and volunteer hours with various organizations in her community. In 2016, B had the distinct honor of receiving the Paralegal of the Year award from the Solo and Small Firm section of the Florida Bar and has served on the Florida Registered Paralegal Enrichment Committee with the Florida Bar since 2018. Thank you for joining us, B. Christine Cadaz is a NALA Certified Paralegal and Florida Registered Paralegal working at Hunter Law in Tampa, Florida. She specializes in family law and personal injury law. She's been working as a paralegal since 2011 and received her bachelor's degree in paralegal studies from St. Petersburg College in 2014. After spending a few years working as a paralegal, Christine decided she was going to give law school a chance. She spent 2 years attending law school part-time, but ultimately decided it wasn't the road she wanted to go down, and she withdrew from law school. Kristen remains passionate about the legal field and looks forward to continuing to work behind the scenes to help clients achieve their goals. Outside of work, she enjoys spending time with her crazy Australian Shepherd kids, riding motorcycles in the mountains, kayaking in open waters, reading and writing a personal blog. Welcome. Carl is our next panelist. He has a lot of letters behind his name, so we'll ask him lots of questions about those. Carl's an ACP, CAS, RP, PP, AACP is an experience in, as well as letters behind his name, very experienced in those. Also an award-winning legal operations manager and advanced certified paralegal, has been in the legal industry for over 2 decades. Carl's highly sought after speaking expertise has afforded him numerous opportunities to share his devotion to the legal industry and the paralegal profession. Since 2017, he's had an award-winning podcast host as the Paralegal Voice on Legal Talk Network. He's a published author for nationally recognized legal professional and award-winning magazines, as well as a contributing author for an educational legal textbook. An active member of NALA affiliates throughout his area where he lives. Carl's also active in the ABA, International Practice Management Association, and Corporate Legal Operations Consortium. Since 2012, Carl's been a paralegal educator and serves as an ABA Paralegal Education Approval Commission site team representative, examining paralegal programs in depth nationwide. Welcome, Carl. Jennifer Wallace is employed at the law firm of Rory B. Weiner, PA. Jennifer's paralegal to Rory, who is a board-certified business litigator, title agent, and practices in the areas of business disputes, commercial litigation, will and trusts, small business law, and real estate. Jennifer is a firm believer in the importance of education and continuing education throughout one's career. She's a strong proponent of furthering education through educational institution environment and through professional development. She encourages fellow paralegals to take the steps to invest in themselves, as the paralegal sector is very competitive. She also feels that mandatory regulation or licensure will continue to be at the forefront of paralegal industry as states adopt and implement these types of paralegal regulation. Welcome, Jennifer. Jeannie Elliott is employed as a paralegal at Christie Industrial Holdings, the management company for Christie family of companies. Her work involved contracts, regulatory compliance, HR issues, and transactional work. As a corporate paralegal, she works with attorneys from numerous law firms and participates in their selection for hire. She reports to and works close with the CEO and corporate management for Christie companies. She's an AA in legal studies and a BA in communications. In 2013, Jeannie received her certified paralegal designation from NALA, followed by an ACP designation a few years later. In the St. Louis area, she served on the advisory committee for their legal program and on the board for the St. Louis Paralegal Association. She's held various committee and board positions, including president and NALA liaison. Jeannie then accepted the position of NALA's Continuing Education Council chair and was there from 2016 through 2020, which is a natural outgrowth of her interest in providing quality continuing education for the paralegal community. This committee produces NALA's magazine, selects topics and speakers for NALA conferences, and has been the highlight of Jeannie's career. Welcome, Jeannie. And last but not least, Margot Valenti. Margot is the founder and chief executive officer for Law Support, a community specializing in virtual legal support services to new attorneys and established practitioners. Margot's expertise for providing superior support services comes from over 33 years in the legal industry. She began her career as a legal assistant in 1987 and has been a Florida registered paralegal since the Florida Bar created the program in 2008. Ms. Valenti has had the privilege of working for prestigious law firms on both a nationwide and state level. Her most recent experience before establishing Law Support was in the role as law firm administrator. She earned her bachelor's degree in business administration from Warrington College of Business at the University of Florida. Her broad range of experience and industry knowledge undoubtedly qualifies her to work with attorneys as both a paralegal with extensive knowledge in a wide range of practice areas, as well as a consultant, supplying guidance to attorneys with their initial startup, compliance, accounting, human resources, and business development. She's honored to currently hold the position of chairman for the Florida Bar's Florida Registered Paralegal Enrichment Committee. Welcome to all of our panelists. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. And we're really, really excited to have you. So for our attendees today, just a reminder to go ahead and put your questions as you think of them in that questions box, and we'll be monitoring those questions throughout the panel. I'm going to start off with a few questions for us, but I don't want you to, hesitate to ask questions in those boxes, and we'll take breaks occasionally to answer them. There's no question that's off limits. This is an ask us anything type panel. So we want to be here to answer as open and honestly as we can. And if you do have questions, obviously you just heard everybody's backgrounds and seen their slides. If you do have questions for specific people, don't hesitate to ask those as well. So let's start off with a really fun question for everybody. We'll just hit heavy right from the get-go. How do I find a job when I have no experience? That's one of the biggest issues that we see from paralegals, whether that's straight out of school, just got their certification, whatever it may be. What do you suggest with all of your years of experience, all of you, to help them find a job with little to no experience? I'm going to call on Carl to go first. Oh. I feel like you have something to say.
Well, I'll answer it this way. When I teach paralegal students, that question always comes up when I teach. Doesn't matter what class I'm teaching, that question always comes up. And I always tell them, number one, look at the experience that you have in your tenure as being an employee for any type of company, whether it be working as, pizza delivery for Pizza Hut to doing retail to whatever. Look at the skills that you have. They are transferable into working in the legal industry. You may not have ever worked in a law office, but you have the skills necessary. Maybe you've managed a restaurant. Well, you've got leadership skills. You've got financial planning skills. You've got project management skills. Look at the skill sets that you have for the jobs in careers. Maybe you changed careers, and craft your resume to really demonstrate that you have the competency in order to work in the industry. I could say a lot more, but I'm gonna let the other panelists speak too.
Margot, would you have any suggestions for that?
Yes, I think what I like to see for me when I see resumes come through, especially with someone that has no experience in the area, a lot of times they start out their resume with their work experience. I think they really need to start out their resume a little bit different, because I think you need to draft your resume towards the job you want. In this case, a lot of them have classes that they've taken that I think any future employer that would like to see what they've taken, I like to see that list of classes first. I like to see the education they received in the paralegal studies. And then down the line, as Carl said, put your experience down, because that is going to translate. Like someone used to say to me, well, you never managed people. Well, I was a volunteer for years and I managed the high school band, and moving 100 people, 100 band members, and getting parents to work for 14 hours a day for nothing, I consider that management. So I think those are the things that put down, those things that you do that are just volunteering, because I do think they equate to skills. I think your work experience is important, but I think if you're coming out and you're a paralegal that's just come out of school, show me the classes that you've taken. Show me, I like to see your grades. I like to see those, because now you want to give your grades first off, but when you go to an interview, I think that's a selling feature. But I like to see your education first. That's what I'm asking. I think so. So if you're new in the industry, just finish your degree, show us the classes, show us what you've taken in the field, and then go down and tell me what your work experience is. That's how I like to look at it.
Great advice. Would anybody else like to add to that question? Go for it, Janie.
I'm going to add the obvious. First of all, what they said was terrific, and I agree completely. But on the side of getting the job, you got to go back to your networking. It's what we're all doing here. It's what NALA's for. It's what your local's for. We have job boards. I got my job that way. I don't know how many people on the panel here did. You need to do the other things that Carl and Margot mentioned, but to go out and find the jobs, once you've done those things and prepared your resume and know your skill sets, that's the place to go.
I'll piggyback on what Jeannie was saying. Exactly right. Networking. Every job that I've ever had since the very beginning in the way of my legal career has been as a result of my network. Just building on my network. Every job I've ever had. I'm blessed that I have such a strong network, and so I encourage you that are attending this to network. That's how you get the best jobs. And NALA is such a great resource at the local level and at the national level. So you attending this, you're starting, look, you've got how many of us on here already to start building your network. So network, network, network.
And then B, you had something to add.
Yeah, and all of this is absolutely true. It's spot on. The only other thing I would add is sometimes, especially in a larger company, when all else fails, don't be ashamed to take an entry-level position, because you will get your foot in the door. You create a scenario where people will recognize certain tasks that you're really good at, far above what the entry-level position is. And before you know it, you're moving yourself up the ladder into a paralegal role. And then we encourage, you just continue with the education piece and the networking and all those good things, because now your portfolio has started for you.
Absolutely. Great advice.
And Kayla, we actually have a question. We have a couple questions in the question box. So I'm going to interrupt you there unless you want to go back, but we've got some good questions there. And I'm going to piggyback on, while you read the question, I'm just going to say, join an association. If I could go back and do two things when I started as a paralegal, when I graduated from school, I graduated from a 4-year ABA approved school with paralegal studies degree, is I would have taken the CP exam right out of school, and I would have joined a local association, because I wouldn't have looked for a year before I found a job. And I ended up actually working in the insurance industry before I actually got to get my foot in the door to get that experience. So those are two things. I think I always came in second to all those jobs. And I think if I'd had that CP behind my name, I probably would have got that job.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and read our first question from Brianna, which is kind of similar to the next question I was going to ask. So awesome. Thank you, Brianna. What advice do you have for newly certified paralegals? In other words, knowing what you know now, what would you wish someone would have told you when you first started out in the legal industry? Don't all go at once. Jennifer, I'm going to call on you.
Okay. It's funny. One thing you can be sure is that you have now exposure to basically your federal rules of civil procedure in all of its form, how it's used in litigation and those types of things. And understanding that although most states do their best to parallel those types of rules and things that guide you through the course of a lawsuit, some states have nuances. So just remember that those rules and the things that you are going to proceed with cases, if you're going to do them in a different state, any state, they have their own set. So if you could find out if your state has the ability to get a similar type of either a certification or to take courses on, maybe what is the state law that would help you with the leg up to help your attorney. Keep them going and staying in line, because you can't play the game if you don't know the rules.
Okay, I have something to add. Do I wait for you to call on me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, okay. All right. An attorney, when I first started out, used to say all the time, that one of my selling features was I always asked. And I kept thinking, well, was I a pain, or was I, not quite, aggravating? So when I started as an administrator and even having in my own company, it finally dawned on me what he was saying. You're going to have doubts as to whether you've done this right, or there's certain things, especially when you're starting out. Don't feel you can't ask. I mean, ask the question, am I doing this correctly? Just double check. I always say, my company, we love to double check, because it makes the attorney feel secure that you're doing it correctly. It allows you to learn something if you didn't do it correctly. And then it also, you haven't made a mistake, which we all fear even after 33 years. You're always concerned you haven't done something quite right. And that fear is never going to go away, so just come to live with it. But it definitely, that's something that just ask. If you feel, and I always laugh, I always tell my children, it's my spidey sense. I always listen to it. If something doesn't feel right, chances are it's not right. So always just ask. And the attorney, even if they're short or something like that, it's not up being short with you. They're probably in a situation that has caused them to be a little, quick in their answer. But it's not directed at you, because I can tell you, underline, I can't imagine any attorney that wouldn't want to know that you've double checked what you're doing. So I wholeheartedly recommend that all the way, and I do that even today. So that's my biggest suggestion.
Awesome. Jeannie.
It's okay that you don't know everything. You just, it piggybacks on what Margot said, but ask for help. Reach, I hate to keep hitting the network, but a lot of your value to your employer is not just what you know, but what information you can go get for them. So if you're not an expert, find an expert. Your boss probably doesn't care whether it's you or somebody you've talked to, and then of course, double check it. But yeah, it's okay to not know stuff. Don't be shy. I know everybody thinks, oh my gosh, can I really connect with all these people on the panel on LinkedIn? Yes, please do connect with us on LinkedIn. And that right there tells us you're somebody who steps up, because if there are 100 people on the call, we'll get 3 people who reach out. So we want to help.
Melissa.
I was going to piggyback off of that, and to remember, as a NALA member, I'm hoping we have a lot of NALA members here, and if you're not, we want you to join. Students, we have a good rate for students, our active membership with that discount. If you're an affiliate, you get a discount that way. But one thing we do have is NALA Commons, which is a NALA members only website. It's kind of like Facebook, Facebook for paralegals, but we share a lot of information out there. So if you're studying for the CP exam, we have a whole NALA Commons group for people preparing for the exam. We have people new to the field, ideas, tips and tricks. We share articles. You can connect with other members there. There's a messaging thing, so you can message with other paralegals that are on NALA Commons privately to get advice. So there's another way, if you're a member of NALA, that you can connect with other people. Use your LinkedIn, use all those sources that you have to connect with other paralegals, because I'm telling you what, we can't build the profession if we don't help each other out.
That's true.
Absolutely. Kristen.
Piggybacking off of everybody's comments so far, one of the things that I always tell paralegals starting out is always carry a notebook with you, pen and paper. Don't leave your office without it, because you never know who you're going to run into in the hallway, and they're going to stop you and say, did you do this? Can you do this? I need you to do this. And then you get back to your desk after grabbing water, going to the bathroom. Exactly. And next thing you know, you forgot, and you've got to go trudging back to the attorney's office to say, what was it that you needed me to do? Because they don't care where you are or what you're doing. They've got their item in their head. And then the other thing I was going to say was if you don't know how to do something, don't just ask how, ask why. At least for me, when I know why I'm doing something, I understand it so much better, and it stays with me, as opposed to just going through the motions of doing something. Now I've got a better understanding of why we're doing it. And for me, I do a lot of family law, so it's a case-by-case basis, and one thing we do in one case may not be the same in another case, and knowing why there's a difference is very helpful in me in the future, knowing when I have a case like this, the attorney wants this because of this, but not in a case like this because of X. So always ask how or why in addition to how.
And that was really good advice about, reaching out via LinkedIn or NALA Commons. I don't know about the rest of you, but I can already feel my phone next to me with LinkedIn alerts. So I can see that there are attendees already reaching out, which is awesome. We will definitely all connect with you. Another question, just kind of going into this CP discussion that we're having, is we've gotten a question from Shakira, who says she's been a paralegal for 9 years. How important is it for someone like her, who's been in the field a little while, to take the CP exam? Melissa, I'm going to start with you.
I've kind of already mentioned that. Like I said, when I started out as a CP, I thought I had a 4-year degree. I didn't need to take the CP exam, and I didn't need to join local associations. And I worked in the legal field for about 11 years, got married, and then had 2 kids and decided, oh, maybe I should get my certification now. So that's not the best time to do that, but it makes, I think you want to get your CP because it makes you more marketable. It shows that our NALA CP exam is the only nationally accredited exam across the whole country out of all the associations, which means we've met very rigid standards on the way we write our test. About that, we have psychometricians we work with. It's a hard test, I'm not going to lie, and I'm not ashamed to tell people I flunked it the first time I passed. When I took it, it was 9 sections, and I passed all but 1 section. I didn't pass the J&A, which is similar to what the skills exam is now. And I remember I got the exam, because we used to have to wait. You guys are lucky now because you get your exam results right away. Well, on the knowledge, you if I get a pass fail right away, where we used to have to wait almost 8 weeks for the mail to come. Yeah, that's that box at the end of the driveway. You have to wait for that guy in the truck to pull up and stick that envelope in there. That's what I had to do. And I got that envelope, and I opened it up, and I still remember I was so close on that J&A section 2, and I was devastated. Like I was like, that's it. I'm not going back. I'm done. Why do I want to go back? And my husband looked at me and he's like, what the hell is wrong? Sorry, what is wrong with you? Basically put your big girl panties on. You passed all but one section. You didn't think you were going to get through any of it. It's a hard exam. Go back and go the next time. And like you get 24 hours to be a baby, and then you got to go back and you got to try. And I went back, and I'll tell you what, I passed that exam. And when I got my mail that time, I spun out in my driveway and did a cookie in my minivan, and I was like, woo, I'm the champion of the world. But it's important. It is important. I got a salary adjustment at work. I work in state government. It is a qualification. You don't need to have a degree, but if you've got a CP credential, that will get you into the pool. It makes you more marketable if you're going to move across country, different states. It's more recognized in other areas. I'm going to tell you, it depends on what area of the country you're in, but depending on what area you're in, that could be the make or break for you to get a job. So that's why it's important to me. I'll let someone else. I could talk all day about this, but I think I need to pass it on to some more of the panelists.
So
I feel like you wanted to say something.
I'll chime in and add to what Melissa was saying. So as a paralegal manager that has actually interviewed over the years paralegals for positions, I always look to see if they're certified or not. Is that the make or break? Not necessarily, but I look at, because I understand what goes into actually setting for the exam. I understand how rigorous it is. I know what an individual has done to get their certification and to maintain their certification. And so I've had, and I'll give you an example, a real life scenario. I've had 2 applicants. They were both so well qualified. One was certified, one wasn't. I interviewed them both because I was like, these are both well qualified individuals. Loved them in the interview. And I was like, I only got one position. I can't hire them both. What do I do? And that certification was the tipping point for me to choose the person that was certified, because I know that they have gone above and beyond in order to work and demonstrate that they are competent in order to do the job required. And so offer the job, hire that person. Now, little side note to that story, about 6 months later, we had another opening, and I went back and got that other person that wasn't certified. But my point being is the certification can be a tipping point in that. Like Melissa said, I thought I was going to live and die in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been here now 6 years. So moving across country after 20 years working in the legal industry, having that certification was, it helped tremendously because employers know about it. And not just law firms, guys and gals, corporate entities, corporate legal departments know about certifications. And some postings, if you have looked in for an in-house corporate job, some of them actually are asking for the NALA CP, NIPA RP, the other ones we won't talk necessarily about, but having that certification, they're looking for it. They know, employers understand it. And so it's volunteer. You don't have to have the certification, but it truly, like Melissa was saying, sets you apart from others that don't have it.
Absolutely. So we're getting a lot of questions about the NALA exam itself. I will say, hopefully we can get a link into the chat box for everybody just to access on NALA's website straight to the information for the NALA exam and any resources available, just to make all of your lives a little bit easier. Because I am seeing some more, generic type questions about the CPA exam itself. So, go ahead, Melissa.
You want a link to the NALA CP exam stuff from the website? I'll throw that into the chat box for you. How's that sound? I'll throw that in there. I'm behind the scenes here working trying to be helpful here, and I might crash, but let's see what I can do.
Okay, so we do have one follow-up to Carl and Melissa from from Baxter, who says, oh gosh, Carl, I'm completely freaked out now. I will definitely explore the CP. Like Melissa, didn't think I needed being in the legal field, needed it being within the legal field for so long. But just joined NALA, so thank you so much for your honesty.
I will say real quick, I'll say I did the same thing. I waited 11, 12 years before I took my first certification. And my advice to you is do it, don't wait. So those that are just now getting into it, get your certification now. Those that have been doing it, don't panic. You can do it. Trust me, you can pass it. So
lots of people who are saying that they're pending their results or they just took the NALA exam. One, congratulations to all of you for having just sat for the NALA exam, because that's a huge feat in of itself. And we hope that you passed and are not like half of us that have probably failed one section that, you know, had to redo it. Hopefully none of you failed anything and you're all going to do fantastic. And if not, just put on your big girl panties and try again like Melissa. B, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just, you know, from an employer standpoint, when you're looking at people's resumes and you see the CP, just like everyone spoke of, you know, it does play an important role. And especially today, many of the firms are looking towards degrees, certifications, whereas back in the day when I started, it was not even a bother, you know, it just, but the point was and for me, same thing. I worked in a law office almost 18 years before I sat for the exam, 7 months pregnant, but I sat for the exam, failed the grammar, took it back and got it. And, you know, so that was huge. But the point I wanted to make is it's not just from an employer standpoint that makes it work. It is a personal goal for you. It's when you get that certification, the world is opening up to you. The possibilities are tremendous. And then, of course, all the resources. NALA is just golden. Your state organizations are golden for you as a stepping stone into a much brighter and healthier future for you.
Awesome. Jeannie.
You know, Carl said something that I would hate you to overlook. He said, I know this is voluntary and I know what you've done. And, you know, my boss, when I got my job, he put on the job posting that certification was required. And I was in the process. So I had not completed it yet. And I asked him about it. He's like, well, I don't even really know what it is. I'm corporate. He said, but this is what, you know, people in my Vistage group told me I needed. But he wanted it not because of the knowledge I was going to get from the exam, but because he knew it, like Carl, it was voluntary. We hire people who want to continue learning. And, you know, it's not just that you have the knowledge, it's that you took this voluntary step to get more information about your field. And yes, it is hard. Not impossible, it's just hard. And your bosses know that, people who hire you know that. And it says a lot about who you are, that you go above and beyond. And yeah, who doesn't want to hire somebody who goes above and beyond? And I guess I would add to it, I'm excited. I just signed up for another advanced certification study because, yeah, it was one that they were working on when I was on the board and stuff. And I was so excited to see it was ready. And, you know, don't stop. Don't stop.
I just signed up for my next one too, so I'm right there with you.
Study buddies.
Yeah. So we have another question for Sumana, from Sumana. I'm looking to transition from my current role as a corporate paralegal in a big law firm to an in-house paralegal in a company. What challenges as a paralegal do you face in-house rather than in a law firm? What skill sets or experience would make the in-house paralegal successful? Jeannie, do you want to start with that one, or Carl? Oh, either Carl or Jeannie first.
Go ahead and start, Jeannie.
Okay, I am corporate, not in-house. Your skills need to be broad, not specified. And if what you're doing now is very specified, kind of go back to what Carl said about your resume, focus on the types of skills you have, how you can apply them. Your knowledge, your networking, I assure you, part of my value is my networking. We have all sorts of bizarre legal things pop up that I have no idea what they are, and yet I can reach out to the NALA group and local groups and say, hey, I'm looking for an attorney in this small town on this specific type of thing. And often in an hour, I've talked to an attorney who's willing to talk to us and we can move on. So in your large firm, you know a lot of attorneys. So you be sure when you go corporate, you let them know, I'm connected. I know attorneys who do all sorts of things and we can bring them in if we need to. As far as what you get into, it just depends on the size of the corporation. I'm the whole legal department, so I touch everything. But you can go corporate and be one of 10 people working on contracts too. So I can't speak to the specific side, but there's a lot of value in what you know and being able to work across the board in different things.
Carl?
Yeah, so I made the transition about 5 years ago into in-house corporate legal department, gaming, hospitality industry here in Las Vegas. From working in private practice, large national law firms, trial, I was heavy litigation. And I actually was stolen from the firm I was working at to come work in-house corporate. My now boss, my general counsel, actually reached out to me, knew about me, and approached me about this particular opening for, at that time, it was senior paralegal was my position. And I said, well, I'll be blatantly honest, I don't know much about other than litigation, contracts, or any of the other areas. And he's like, Carl, I can teach you, you have the knowledge and the skills in order to work in those particular areas. I will mentor you in that. You have what I need. Specifically, he needed someone with strong litigation skills in order to help manage the litigation book of cases that we had, as well as implementing our e-discovery playbook, creating an actual implementing an e-discovery system, actually creating a playbook, processes, things of that nature. And so I had a great, lucky was to have a great boss that helped mentor me in doing certain areas, including employment law. I draft all our company's executive agreements, employment agreements, separation agreements. I deal with intellectual property. I deal with your one-off type cases, someone, a cease and desist type letter because someone's infringing on our copyright, random things like that. But what I'll say for making the transition, the leap from working private practice to corporate, is to understand there is a culture difference. So knowing that when you make that transition, it is like a law firm, a legal department, in-house corporate. For me, it was like a law firm. All thing was I had one attorney. There are 7 other employees besides myself that work in respective compliance, risk management, things of that nature. But my client is the business leader. So whatever department, that's my client. Outside counsel, dealing with outside counsel, understanding that the dynamics are a little bit different, but you can do it. To me, it's an easy transition. I think it would be hard to go from corporate to working private practice. I think it's easier to make the private practice leap into corporate in-house. But understand that it's not, you can do it. It's not something you can't do. You just have to go in eyes open. I will say this one additional thing. The biggest challenge for me, and you guys are probably gonna laugh, was within the first 30, 45 days, it took me all my willpower not to go into a meeting with VPs, not to immediately sit down, and the first thing I write was who's in the meeting, what time are we starting, and what time are we finishing, because I got to do a time entry the second I walk out of there. So every meeting I would sit there and go, wait, I don't have billable hours. I don't have to track my time anymore. Woo! So
that would change my whole life.
That was the worst part about going to where I'm at now, was the billable hours requirement, keeping track of every 0.6 minutes of my time.
When anybody ever asks what's the worst part of being a paralegal, I think that's unanimously generally our answer. Like that's it.
Okay.
It's the
I gotta say, I love to bill. I love billing time. I know it's odd, but I think it's a game. I love it. You know, I get to see what my day is like, you know, and work the game.
I like that you look at it as a game.
It is, it's game. I look at it that way. And I tell all my staff, look at it as a game. You know, you're going to sit there and we're going to look at the end of the day. You're going to have a snapshot of what you did. It's a game.
Well, we have a great transition related question from Tatiana. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to say, I've been popping information into the chat box for those of you looking for information about the CP exam, what NALA offers. And so if people are looking for CP exam information, go check out the chat when we're done here, or just you can copy and paste out of there. There's links to NALA's website and study information there. So
thank you so much.
That'll help with the questions on how to prep for the CP exam.
Yeah, awesome. So from Tatiana, that's a great question. Hello, how do I transition from a legal secretary position that I've held for over 5 years in different law firms into a paralegal position? Do employers prefer seeing paralegal experience over legal secretary experience when hiring for a paralegal specific position? I do have my paralegal certificate. Who wants to lead with that one? B.
That is exactly what I did in my career. So when I first started, I did not know what industry or what I wanted to do. I was approached by my high school's English teacher, whose husband was an attorney, desperately needing a secretary. I loved all my business courses, so I started working. I postponed going to college and decided to start working, and that's how I entered the legal industry. And so I worked as a legal secretary in Florida, in North Carolina, large firms, small one-person office. Then I realized when I was in the small office, I started doing real estate closings. I was doing paralegal work and didn't even realize that that's what it was. When I moved back to Florida, I started with a personal injury attorney and realized he hired me as a paralegal. And that started my discovery of wanting to get certified, because I had already the skill set that would lead me to bigger and better things. So you actually, if you are a legal secretary, by all means, further your education. Take those CP courses, take the CP exam. You know, it doesn't stop there. Keep going for all your added advanced certifications. It doesn't stop. You just keep wanting to learn more as you go along. So there's definitely an opportunity from moving from legal secretary to paralegal. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Would anybody like to add on that one before I move on to the next question?
I can add to that. I started out the same way. I started out as a legal secretary trainee, and I thought the highlight on my day was the fact that I had a correctable typewriter. I thought, wow, I hit the big time. And then I started a virtual company, and they were all laughing when I brought up the fact that now, you know, the typewriter is just a figure. It's just a thing that sits in the corner, and people laugh at it. Yes, I think one of the things that you can make that transition, and for me, I get asked all the time by my clients, what is the difference between a legal assistant and a paralegal? And I think the difference, again, we can go by what the bar says of what's billable and not billable, but I think it's more important to know that I always say a paralegal can draft. A paralegal can take something and she, like even from litigation, take, the request to produce, or whatever the answers are. They can actually, I always say, can do a first draft. They have a knowledge of they always know what statutes they work in. They know, like Jennifer mentioned, the civil rules, the civil procedure. They always know that. Where a lot of times when you ask a legal assistant, they really don't know those things are out there. So when you go to further education and all like that, those are the kinds of things that you are going to put together an actual product. I think that's a little bit different for what a paralegal does. A paralegal can put something together, and it may not always be perfect. I think as time goes along, you're pretty much sometimes better than the attorney at what you're putting together, but that's another segment, I'm sure, of this whole thing. But definitely you put products together, you put the documents together, and that is something that, as a legal assistant, I think that's how you can move up. The more you ask to do that, the more you want to be in there and say, hey, let me give that a try. I can do that. I think that's those are the stepping stones to becoming a paralegal. And I think at one day, it's not like you wake up and say, hey, I'm a paralegal. I mean, the thing of it is you go for the next job and you list those skill sets that you have, then I think that title comes with it. So I think that's how I did it. So I think that's how I see it as it being the correct path, because I think the more you ask and the more they give you the opportunity to do it, and the more you feel, hey, I can get that done, you really do set up your own career that way.
Absolutely. So we have a great question from Baxter, who is in Caldwell, Idaho. And this is a great question for you, Margot. With COVID lingering around the country, not just within one state, obviously, what are the pros and cons of moving from a seasoned paralegal to a more freelance contractor type position?
I think it's kind of how you're going to approach it. So say you want to be, you want to go completely virtual, or you want to freelance as a contractor. I think most law firms are going to, any kind of like freelance kind of situation, you are going to have a contract relationship. I think that one of the things is that you have to define the terms of what that virtual relationship is going to be. I think when you go in, a lot of attorneys will say, well, I just need somebody that they can pretty much do this, 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 and that. And there a lot of times it has to do with, like I get this, I need a paralegal to take it intakes and do this. And a lot of times those types of situations don't work well in a virtual situation. So I think you have to kind of understand what skills you have that can equate to a virtual atmosphere. If you're working with a law firm and they just ask you to work remotely, that's a different scenario, because of the fact that they're going to give you the tools, they're going to give you everything you need in order to be successful. One of the things that I had when I started out my company is you don't appreciate the large form files that you see in a large firm until you have them. You don't have them anymore, or you don't appreciate the fact that you're getting constant, updates on the laws from, the person that handles the communication within the large law firm. Those things all go away. So when they talk about making these associations or making these connections or contact, those are the resources you need to be a standalone virtual individual. There's a whole, and then another thing comes down to, it can be lonely. So you have to be the kind of person that, you're not going, I know this sounds terrible and might be a little, you're not going to work to find friends. You're going to work to make the acquaintances and enjoy everybody's company, but you have to be pretty confident that you can keep yourself motivated and moving on your own. But it definitely, you have to kind of decide what you're going to be. Are you going to be a paralegal working for a firm remotely at home? And then that has a different set of rules, and they're going to tell you what assignments you're going to do. And you're pretty much going to be an extension of that. Or are you going to have your own shingle out there? Are you going to work for another attorney remotely? And then you also have to define those kinds of tools of what you're going to do. Well, all attorneys say, well, I need you to do everything. Well, everything, again, doesn't work well virtually. So you have to kind of fine tune that. And I think I think virtual works beautifully. I mean, in certain areas of law, and sometimes they just don't in others. And one of the ones I can say is like guardianships. Guardianships don't work well in a virtual atmosphere because they are very time sensitive. These people are going very quickly. And when you're working virtually, there can be always an hour or two delay in any kind of response. So I think virtual is definitely, everybody's trying to give it a shot now, but I definitely think you need to be prepared for what kind of virtual situation that is before taking on the job or the responsibility.
And then in terms of becoming a more freelance or independent paralegal, trying to really set your parameters.
Yes, you really do. And a lot of times what you have to do is you have to kind of decide, and this is just the way that I look at it, in taking on your clients. I see some virtual paralegals that will work directly with the public. I don't agree with that unless you're in a state that has that kind of designation. I know in some of those where you can be document preparers. I work with a great paralegal out in California, and she's a document preparer. She has a license to be a document preparer. Here in Florida, I think anything outside of working for an attorney, you're almost running the risk of an unlicensed practice of law. There, at some point along the line, they're going to ask you to give an opinion. So you have to kind of know your area that you're working in and to what they allow and how you should work within that. But I think becoming a virtual paralegal, you have to, again, I think you have to have, just as they say, a contract with your client. You have to have a set agreement. You have to define what it is. So you have to have your own business. I recommend everybody start at least an LLC, to protect yourself and for payment purposes and stuff. So it always doesn't hurt to kind of get that kind of set up before you go out there onto the virtual realm. There's also other associations that you can join that have to deal with just the virtual aspect of it all. So that's something to consider too, is getting tips from other people that work virtually.
Absolutely. Yeah, B.
So just from a practical standpoint, and Margot, hit the nail on the head with everything, but from a practical standpoint, unless you are financially stable, going from a steady corporate or in-house paralegal with a steady salary, once you go virtual or freelance, it's not going to be as steady an income as you might be used to. So something to think about before you step into those shoes as well.
Absolutely.
I do have something to add to that. I would say that also she said you have to be prepared financially to take on that kind of a role, but you also can minimize that by how you take on your payments. We don't take checks because, this don't tell me the attorneys, but they don't notoriously pay their bills on time. So you can wait a couple of months to get paid. We don't do that because everybody, I think the work has been prepared. So you have to pay it. So my payment structure is a little bit different. But recommended ACH, they don't cost anything, and you can pull it from them pretty quickly. Other things like that, there's things out there that you get paid quicker, but there is going to be, until you build a book of business, and you're just not going to get to that kind of lucrative situation that you had when you were working for a law firm.
So we have a good question from Sharon. She says, I'm a 56-year-old woman who had to change careers. My question is, will there be more competition for me within this field?
Well, I can answer that one too.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer someone that's older in this field, especially for the fact of your knowledge base. I mean, I actively look for older women, and I say that because I am one, but also because of the fact that I do think that you've had a vast amount of experience. And so I think that there's competition, but you're not in the same grade as someone that doesn't have experience. I think the only thing that you're going to come up against might be pay. You may not be able, if someone's willing to hire someone for less money, you might have to take less money for the amount of experience you have, but I definitely think your knowledge is the key to your success. I believe that.
Awesome. Jeannie, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, she mostly said what I did. I don't think age is a factor as a paralegal. If anything, it's a benefit. The more wisdom across different fields you bring in, just like Carl making the switch, to me, it's a no-brainer. I would be struggling at a reason to take the new entry into the field. So don't let it intimidate you. Market yourself and your knowledge and why you're worth the money you're asking for. And I think you can convince somebody that you can far outserve them over somebody new to the field.
I'll even chime in and say this. My late mother went to law school at the age of 55. So if she could go to law school at 55, then even making the transition into the paralegal industry around the same age, easy. You shouldn't have any problem with Margot and Jeannie both. I agree 110%. So don't sell yourself short and don't be afraid.
So I have a great question from Brianna, who wants to know, what resources do you suggest for newly certified paralegals, or we'll just say for new paralegals in general, to always have in their possession?
Oh,
Carl, you got visually excited. Tell us.
No, gosh, there's a ton of stuff.
My thing is, if you can find someone who's been in the field, especially in wherever you're going to practice in, who's got some templates, some lists, some examples to show you, those are going to save your life. So that would be my thing. Carl.
I didn't want to step over anybody, but I mean, exactly right. Beginning to build your form library is so critical. Back in the day, I created an old-fashioned notebook, and I would print out or create, tables of information The local district courthouse in Tulsa, they always gave a printout of the judges, their phone numbers, their bailiffs, the judicial assistants numbers. I'd have that in there. I would have, you know, all sorts of, it was my one-stop shop. That I called it my Bible because it sat right next to my monitor and I could pull that relatively quickly. My second thing, because I did civil, was my rules of civil procedure. I'm telling you, that thing, every time a new one would come out, I would wear it out in the first 3 months, and it would be tabbed and notes written all in it. And I would take those notes into the next edition of it when it would come out and wear that sucker out. That was my life, my Bible, which was my notebook of resources, and then my rules of civil procedure, and my blue book. Those were my 3 major sources that I always had and always relied on, especially at the beginning years of working.
Absolutely. Would anybody like to add to that? Kristen?
I'll add to that, going off of having the rules of procedure and stuff, also local administrative orders and judges' preferences, especially when you're dealing in family or civil lit, where you're having to schedule with judges, schedule trials, or even just filing pleadings with the local administrative orders about discovery, and those kinds of things are super helpful. So if you're practicing in multiple different counties, you will have multiple different counties that you need to be familiar with because they are all different.
Oklahoma has 77 counties. My notebook was thick. It was a big notebook, but yeah, just like Kristen was saying, I had, you know, all the little nuances from each of those different counties. Now moving into Nevada, there's only like 12 or 16 counties, so it's like really easy.
I think we've got 67 in Florida.
Yeah, there's a lot.
North Dakota, there's 53 counties in North Dakota and they're unified judicial system, so they all are the same across the board.
Oh my God.
And we've been using Odyssey to e-file for probably 10 or 12, 15 years maybe already. So we're like,
Wow.
we may be out in the middle of nowhere, but we're kind of getting on there with some technology.
I'm moving
Out of your house,
coming your
there's
way,
too much
Melissa.
stuff, so.
I would add from the corporate side, I keep my handbook with me. I take it on vacation unless it's a really special vacation, because it's the corporate equivalent of the civil rules, and you need to know what it says.
Yep.
I will say, in terms of great resources for newly certified paralegals or just newer paralegals in general, NALA, either the NALA Commons, especially if you're a NALA member, NALA Commons is great. And the free resources available on NALA's website. There's even free CLE available. So those are really good resources for a newer paralegal. And before I forget, there is a question from Jessica, and this is it takes us back a few questions, but I'll have either Jeannie or Carl answer this one. When you guys were talking about the corporate versus in-house type life, she wanted to know what's the difference between these two. So if someone would explain what the difference between corporate and in-house is for someone who's newer.
Go ahead, Jeannie. That's a great question.
I think that actually we might be really good examples of the difference. I'm corporate. I don't report to a lawyer. Now I know there's all the I report to the president or the CEO. I hire the legal resources. So that's, to me, in a corporate attorney, and sometimes a corporate attorney will have in-house counsel, which I think is who Carl works for. And it is like a little law firm inside the company. So there's huge differences there in what's going on. I think that's a start of it. I think Carl can probably pick it up and add some more color to that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a major difference between working private and working corporate, I mean, big deal is knowing that, where your ethical boundaries are. It's really hard for those lines to get blurred in corporate versus when you're working in a law firm, because your client is your business leader. So VP of food and beverage comes to me with a legal question. even though I may know how to answer that question and it is, rendering an opinion, I still can't. And I still have to say, let me talk to my GC. We'll get back to you with a solution or an answer to the question. So the ethical boundaries can be a major thing that you have to be very cognizant of working in-house corporate. I work like Jeannie, I only have one attorney and one general counsel. So we engage outside counsel for a lot of different reasons. And so he's the relationship builder for our outside counsel. I am the manager of our outside counsel. So I have a strong relationship with them, not just for billing purposes when they submit their invoices, but for also managing, whether it be litigation, whether it be intellectual property, whatever the case may be. I'm working side by side with them, still in a relationship of they're the attorney, I am the support professional, I'm the paraprofessional, so I am doing what they need me to do. But still having some autonomy in what I do. So it's a different setting in that working in private practice, you're truly working, difference between Jeannie and I, truly working for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different, attorneys in private practice. Typically, a in-house corporate legal department is small. Like I said, there's only 8 of us. I have one corporate paralegal that works under me, that she reports to me. The rest we have a risk manager, we have a compliance director, we have a contracts administrator, me, corporate paralegal, general counsel. So that's the structure, that's it. We're lean but mighty. And that's pretty much true unless you're working for the Google's entities, legal departments where there's multiple people, but most corporate legal departments are small. They're not huge. So you're doing a lot of work.
Melissa, if possible, are you able to put the link to the Facebook resource group? Okay, thank you. Few questions about mentorship. We have a couple people asking about mentorship programs available. How do I find a mentor, training, hands-on experience that will help lead to my employment as a paralegal? More than willing to get certified, but looking for kind of that mentorship foot in the door thing. Would anybody like to start with that? I feel like Jennifer or B, for sure. I know you guys have answers to that.
Start. Your local paralegal association right off the bat. Immediately, you move into town, you figure it out, and if you're lucky, you have multiple paralegal associations in your area, and that's how you. When I first graduated, got the CP, I joined both of the locals. One was the NALA affiliate, one was the NIFA affiliate, but that was the way to get to the people in the know. They have the pulse and heartbeat of the legal community that you now work in. Everybody knows about every law firm and every setting and where's the great places and where's the not so great places. And those are phenomenal resources, not only for your CLEs that you'll get, but for the massive max networking potential to help you at all times in any stage of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. The affiliates are really where it's at in terms of networking, mentorship opportunities available, and local type resources to you. I'm pretty sure that all of us on this call have met each other either through NALA or an affiliate.
Yeah.
Except for me and Kristen, who went to school together 72 million years ago, what feels like. Yeah, B.
Oh, I would just add to Jennifer's comment that in addition to your local paralegal organizations, a lot of the local bar associations open the door to paralegals. I know in the Tampa Bay area, the Hillsborough County Bar Association acknowledges paralegals to join, and there's another great group of mentorship available there as well. Not to mention that they add to some free CLEs that you can get to further your education hours. So.
And that adds to the networking thing too, when you're joining the local bar associations. Not only are you meeting other paralegals, you're meeting potential bosses or people that you could be working with under.
So I have a question from Michelle. She said, I've had my certification since 2012 and have always been in the legal secretary position, even if they call it a paralegal. Is that more common than not? I work in the personal injury defense area and have constantly been told that insurance companies will not pay for the paralegal to draft pleadings, only the attorneys or interns.
Yeah.
Carl's losing it. I just feel like I am a glorified secretary. Carl, did you have something to say?
That is such a lie. I'm going to tell you firsthand that is a lie. Because I'm going to give you...
Which lie? You're so worked up.
Sorry, because that just, give me his number. Let me talk to him. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to give you a real world scenario. I did insurance defense forever and a day. And the firm I worked at, the attorney that I was working for, actually was, he and another partner were courting a major insurance carrier, won't give the name, and they went down to headquarters to meet with the muckety mucks to try to get the business in Oklahoma. And so they're there. I know they're there. They're meeting. I get a frantic phone call from my attorney, and he goes, Carl, I know you're certified. Do you have a copy of your certification? And I was like, well, I can pull it off the wall and take it out of the frame. Yeah, I can make a copy real quick. He's like, make a copy and send it to me right now. They're asking for it. And I was like, what? So he got back the next day and I said, so what happened? And he was like, they were specifically asking, what is our structure in the way of how do we staff matters? Is it partner heavy? Do they use associates? Do they use paralegals? And if you guys use paralegals, are they certified? Because they wanted more paralegals doing the more substantive stuff in the way of drafting discovery responses, actually preparing depot summaries, actually attending and assisting at hearings in the way of presenting evidence, whether it be trial presentation, whatever the case may be, because they wanted to see that at that rate, at the paralegal rate versus the associate or partner rate. They didn't want them. They wanted us paralegals. So I will tell you, insurance companies actually are good. I'm going to say, that sounds wrong, good ones. Ones that truly understand how a firm should staff their matters are going to want certified paralegals because they will want those individuals to actually be the ones to draft. And so that bothers me that this person's telling you that they don't want you to draft, because that's not true. You are worth and more profitable because you can do some of that work and let the associate and the partner actually practice law and help with the research and the opinion to help guide the case. We are the masters of the procedure. Lawyers are the doctors of the law. And so, yeah, sorry, that was just...
I'm currently working in insurance defense, and I get the same struggle of having, arguing back and forth with the insurance company. So I understand the pain. Would anybody else like to add to that? Carl was very passionate.
I have to say what I have noticed in the last couple, I started to work with paralegals in other states, and it's interesting to see how other states provide that designation. I think there's one of them, it might be Mississippi, that doesn't even really acknowledge the word paralegal. I mean, it's all legal assistants, no matter what they do. I mean, it's an interesting to see maybe where she's located at. But I have to agree with Carl, especially on the insurance defense side, it's heavy on relying on paralegals. For the personal injury, I think maybe that would be more where they rely more heavily on the attorneys because of the billable rates that they can do. They can charge more for the associate and the personal, the the one that's representing the individual rather than the defense part of it. But it definitely is interesting to see as I go through the different states that I'm working in that I'm starting to see how paralegals are viewed differently. And it's interesting. You know, it really isn't a cohesive like it is in South Dakota or wherever she is, where they have that whole beautiful thing where everything is across the board the same. Even the word paralegal or legal assistant is still used in, across the different states that I find interesting. And I think it was Mississippi and Alabama I had where I was shocked that they were really light on using the word paralegal. But that's just something to say that maybe the state that she's located in.
I feel like this is going to trigger Carl, but she's in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry. I can't make this up.
She needs to call Carl and have Carl come over and talk to that man. Yeah.
I know.
I was just going to say, Carl's going back to Tulsa.
I know the lawyer, I'm sure. So you would tell me the name and I would know them. So anyway.
We're going to have a separate conversation just about that.
Correct.
We have a great question from Brianna. How important is it to continue your education? I've received my associate's degree in we're triggering half the people on this call. I have received my associate's degree in paralegal studies from Phoenix College and now received my certification through NALA. I've been accepted to the University of Arizona, congratulations, for their bachelor's program in law and my master's in legal studies. Am I making the right steps?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody on this call is going to say yes to that. We are all for continuing your education here. I can answer that on behalf of everybody.
I don't think you ever quit learning. You never ever quit learning. You have to keep up on your skills. That's part of being a good paralegal is you've got to, the law evolves, law practice evolves. I mean, some of us I remember getting the first fax machine and we all stood around and went, wow, coolest thing ever. This was before email. Like there was no email. This was the year I interned, but no email or anything. And it was still, we got that fax machine and we could, instead of having to beat the mailman at 5 o'clock, we could fax things to the court before 5 o'clock. To file those motions, so it's always evolving. I mean, you look at that, most offices don't even have fax machines anymore. We still do. So you've got to stay up. The law, technology, you've always got to keep learning. With that, I'm going to let other people talk because there's great wisdom on this panel.
The second you stop learning is the second that you should go lie down in the cemetery, because that's it. When you stop learning, the world is going to pass you by and you are going to be so left behind that it'll be hard to even catch back up. And so people more skilled, more knowledge, more, whatever it is, technology, the second you just give up and don't continue learning, that's it. You just might as well wrap it up because you will be left so far behind.
The phrase learn something new every day is perfect for this field because you will and can always learn something new.
One of the reasons that it doesn't get boring, when you go in, you can always have the opportunity to learn something in this area. It's not like you go in and do a job that is the same thing every day. That's one of the things when we bring in new people and they go, well, does it ever just become this is the job and I come in and do it every day, almost like you're working on a factory line? If you're looking for that, this is not the field. It just isn't. You had embraced the fact that technology, the legal industry, everything changes daily. What you did yesterday might be different tomorrow. And that's the exciting part of it. You've been in this career a long time. A lot of us here have been there a long time, but it doesn't feel that way because every day it feels like we could say it's a career and not a job, just because of the fact that, our hobbies and all like that are about increasing our education. When they talk about going for their advanced certification, it's all on their own time. So I always laugh that I always say my job and my hobby are the same, so you're never going to catch me off guard. So definitely you got to keep it going because, and especially what you're doing, I think that's wonderful. So I think, you're right on the right path.
And no matter what, in the same field for 20 years, every case and every contract are different, everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kayla, on top of that, think of your attorneys are on the same level as doctors. And it is called a practice of medicine and a practice of law. It is constantly evolving and changing. And if you don't know what the newest and the greatest and the changes are, you will get left behind. It's not your attorney's job to teach you everything as a paralegal. And to be honest, I think most of this panel would agree, you already know the answer to the question before you even ask it. So it is so important to keep up on that practice. That's an investment in yourself, because otherwise, you will get stale and the information does get old, but it's constantly changing. So furthering your education is the best way to do that.
So in speaking of education, I do have one question for you guys, and I know the answer for one of you, but what, I like that Kristen already knows I'm gonna ask. Are there times when any of you wish that you went further to become a lawyer? Anybody other than Kristen?
Nope.
Okay, so Kristen, now you have to tell the panel why. So you started law school, you went through a paralegal program, you then decided you were going to move into law school, worked as a paralegal. What made you, one, want to decide to go to law school, and two, what made you not want to continue law school?
Yeah, so it's a long story that I will shorten down. I've always wanted to be a lawyer. So, but after I graduated high school, I took a few, I call them wrong turns, even though I ended up where I belong. I just took the scenic route. So I decided after being in the workforce for a few years, I decided to go get my associate's degree and then my bachelor's degree in paralegal studies, because it was the closest thing to a lawyer that I knew about, that I found. And I figured, one day I'll potentially go to law school. Then I started working in the legal field and said, heck no, I don't want to go to law school. I like my 9 to 5. I like going home and not having to think about work, even though I still do. I mean, I'm sure we all still do to an extent, but it's not like it is if you're an attorney. I like not having responsibility, liability, just more freedom. Fast forward a few years, now I've been working in the legal field, and I started to hit the proverbial ceiling that I thought I would hit, where I didn't feel like I was high enough. I needed to be able to move up. And what is up above a paralegal? Well, that's an attorney, as far as I can tell. The next step was for me to go to law school. So I was working at a family law firm. The attorney that I was working with, I was working for a few of them. One of them split and went to open her own practice, and I stayed on at the firm. And the founding partner there brought me in on a lot of networking and behind the scenes things for law firms and how to build a law practice. And I started meeting attorneys across the country. And I just got into this lawyer side of things, and I was like, this is kind of where I want to be. Then he hired another attorney, and I started to fall back into the paralegal groove, and it just wasn't feeling right. And I decided I'm in a good spot right now. I was engaged, now married. So my fiance was very supportive, and so I decided to go to law school because I wasn't happy where I was at that time. So I did a part-time program. So I was going to school part-time, working full-time. So my life was literally the law. I eat, breathe, sleep the law. I thought going to school full-time to get my paralegal studies bachelor's degree was difficult while working full-time. This was a whole different ballgame, which I knew going into it. It was not going to be easy, but ultimately, so during my 2-year part-time stint, I transitioned to a new law firm. And I have to say, I feel like the biggest reason I went to law school was because I just wasn't happy at the law firm that I was at. And I really should have just found a new job, because all of the reasons why I did not want to be a lawyer started coming back to me while I'm working at this new amazing law firm and with these new amazing coworkers. And then the pandemic hit and, crazy life. And so ultimately I decided that the liability, the responsibility, there's a lot that comes into being an attorney that's not just going to law school. You are constantly giving bad news to clients because you can't give them everything that they want. And in family law and personal injury, when you have to tell a client that there's not enough money on the other side, or they can't see their kids more than every other weekend because that's what the judge decides, that's heartbreaking and not something that I want to do. And maybe it's a little selfish of me, but I do get more client interaction as a paralegal. I feel like I get to be with the clients more than prepping for the hearing or prepping for this, or so there's a lot of pros and cons. I don't discourage anybody that is, potentially wanting to go that route. I think that working in the legal field and being a paralegal I think every attorney should be required to be a paralegal before they can become a practicing attorney.
I know how hard it is.
Yes. So, and then there's so many attorneys there are so many people that go to law school, pass the bar, and then they don't want to practice, or they start practicing and it's not what they wanted. So I recommend, if you are thinking about going to law school, that you work in the legal field a little bit before you do that, if you can, because you may change your mind and you may just want to stay as a paralegal with the rest of us, because I like it better and I'm sticking here.
It's a really good point about more of it's important to be in the right fit rather than assuming that what you actually need is to move continuously up. And it is something that comes up a lot in question about there being kind of a proverbial ladder of success that you were talking about. That people assume you start as a paralegal and stay just as a paralegal. And I think we've all held positions other than paralegal that we can kind of attest to that, or most of us have, that you can kind of attest there are ways to move up within this career field, within this path, within the legal field, without either losing your paralegal skills, losing the ability to do that every day, and also continuously feeling like you're moving up, because that's, I think, what we all generally want is to, no one, just like we were saying, or Carl was saying, that like you stop learning, you're done, basically. Same thing as, you don't want to be in the same spot forever and never feel like you're learning or moving up in whatever it is that you do now.
And something that you said that it's a trigger word for me now, because it's just paralegal. Remember, we are not just, You're not just a paralegal. A paralegal is the backbone of the law office, because they may have been able to do those things in the past, but life is way too fast now and attorneys can't practice on their own. To me, it's not safe for them to do that, because they will miss things, they'll miss deadlines, they will miss stuff. So you are the backbone. You are the support. I think I wrote on my Facebook when I announced that I wasn't going to be in law school anymore, that I had stopped, was that I'm going to stay in the trenches with the rest of us, because we're the behind the scenes. We don't get any of the credit, but we do a lot of the back work, and it is still rewarding though. So it's just a matter of working in the right place and with the right group of people.
So this brings us to a great question from Jessica, who said, I'm 2.5 years into my paralegal career and have worked for 2 law firms, both smaller in size. I'm ready to start taking on more responsibility, make more money. How should I prepare for that? What sort of expectations should I have as I prepare and try and look for a job with better pay and higher responsibility? What suggestions do you have, panel?
Can we start with why you're not talking to your current bosses about where they can help you go in the next 5 years? So that's number one. For me, I'll let the others jump in on the job search part, but I don't miss the opportunities that might be right there. They may be dying. It's the conversation we just had. You're not just a paralegal, and here's the job you're doing now, but maybe they need somebody doing administration. I'm talking to clients. Just talk to them.
Well, and to build on that, if the job that you're in right now and those attorneys, they know your work product right now. So if you can start asking them to give you tasks here and there, and you can show them that I can do these things, I'm worth this X, Y, and Z, and I deserve to have a raise or a, you can start with that and see where they talk, where they go with that, because they know what your work product is now too. So you probably could get more money out of them than some fresh attorney's office.
It is hard. It's hard when you ask. It's hard to ask an employer, and especially like in my area, I'm in a very rural area. It's hard, but I have used, NALA has a utilization and compensation survey, and I've used that to go to my bosses and say, hey, I know that I'm within state government. I know that this is where we're at, but here's where you've got me on the salary scale. Here's what other paralegals in the state make. Well, there we go, get my backwards. But make sure that you're showing them that I'm worth this. This is what I do. And then the other thing that's going on in my local area right now is there's a lot of paralegal openings and not a lot of paralegals. So if they want to keep you where you're at, you can say, hey, there's other openings. I mean, you don't want to threaten them. Obviously, because you never ever should threaten an employer unless you're ready to walk. But just say, hey, there's other areas here. It's hard to find paralegals. What can you do? How do we work this out? And you've got to show your worth, because if you don't ask, they're not going to give it to you. You've got to show your worth, and you've got to ask.
You are the architect of your career, so you have the say in the tasks that you do, within reason, of course, and the money that you make. So piggybacking on what everyone's already said so far, actually reaching out and saying, hey, and this is what I did years ago. Attorney that I worked for, I was like, hey, Nathan, let me review the motion in limine that you're working on, and let me help do the site check. Let me, help write the factual part of that. And he let me, and the rest is history. So don't wait for someone to give you, reach out and actually take the initiative, because 9 times out of 10, that attorney is going to go, oh, okay, I didn't realize you wanted to do that, because they just, here, do this, do that, do this, without really realizing, hey, actually, I want to do more, and demonstrate that you can do this, then start talking about the salary. And if for a myriad of reasons, it's time for you to move on. And we've done it. All of us have done it in our careers, where we've realized, okay, well, I've gotten as far as I can get here. So maybe stepping out into a different position, different firm, making the leap from private to corporate is the way to help you make your trajectory the direction you want to take it. But start setting yourself goals. I want to be blank in 3 years. I want to doing blank in 2 years. Set a goal and start working towards it, and just start picking away at it, because everything that I have and what I've done in my career is because I just was like, you know what, I can do more. I'm going to start asking to do more, and here we are. 24 years.
I think we're kind of getting it close to our time here, aren't we?
We are. So I do want to add one more thing in response to this question, and just say, I know this person is 2.5 years into their career, but also NALA, utilize NALA. I'm pretty sure quite a few of us have done this, where we've become certified paralegals or ACPs, and use that to push our career within the current firm that we're in, to say, hey, I've done this certification. I would like to, move up or request a higher pay raise due to that. I think most of us have done that on this panel. So utilize the resources at NALA as well to continue to further your career.
When you do pass the CP, I was going to say one quick thing with the CP, you get a letter. Your employer gets a letter and says, hey, did you realize your employee, if you give them that, NALA will send them a letter. Your employee's passed the CP exam. Here's what the credentials are. Here's what it means. So there's that there. I know we're getting close on time, and we still have some questions. We are going to post those to NALA Commons. So for those of us, our people who are on joining us with this call, if your question didn't get answered, we'll try to get it out there, but post it out on NALA Commons too. And there's a lot of seasoned paralegals. The whole NALA Board of Directors is on there. We can answer them and those questions there. And if you're not a member, I'm doing that push again. Look on the NALA website. If you're a student, it's $50 to join. and you get access to NALA Commons, you get access to facts and findings. So there's a great way, if you're starting out in your career as a student, do that. Look at your local association too. So I don't want us to run over on time. I know our time is valuable. Everybody is there and we try to stay with that. Kayla, is there anything else we need from a housekeeping standpoint? I'll turn it back over to you.
No, I just want to go ahead and thank you all, our panelists, for participating today. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you, attendees, for attending this awesome panel.
Okay.
Yay. Oh, and I don't know if it's still recording, but I don't know if this recording will be posted on NALA's website, but it will be on NALA's YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to that yet, make sure you do that.
Yes, and there's the other paralegal panel. The other paralegal panel is posted on the YouTube website. And so if anybody's an educator or anybody wants to go and look at that one, that was more student, new to the career, that's there too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Have a great rest of the weekend, everyone.
You too.
Been lovely.